Admiral Hyunwoo Kim walked into the massive council chamber with heavy steps. The room was huge, filled with representatives from 12 different alien species. Each one looked at him with eyes that showed they thought humans were nothing special. He had come here to warn them about something dangerous, but he already knew they would not listen. The chamber walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Floating seats held creatures that looked nothing like humans. There were the Vorthak with their green scales and yellow eyes. The Nexari looked like walking diamonds that caught the light. The Cleth were like clouds of gas that somehow spoke with voices like thunder. All of them were older species than humans. All of them thought they knew better. Hyunwoo stood at the center of the room and cleared his throat. His uniform was simple compared to the fancy clothes and decorations the aliens wore. He was 55 years old with gray hair and lines on his face from years of worry about Earth's safety. "I come before this council with an urgent warning," he began. "The space sector we call Omega-7 is showing signs of extreme danger. Our sensors have detected strange readings there for 6 months now." Counselor Veltar of the Vorthak made a sound like a snake laughing. He was huge, twice as tall as any human, with claws that could cut through steel. "Humans," he said in a voice full of disgust. "Your species has barely learned to fly between stars. We have been traveling space for thousands of years before your ancestors discovered fire." Captain So-Jin Park stepped forward to stand beside her admiral. She was younger, maybe 30, with smart eyes and a calm way of speaking. "Counselor Veltar, our equipment may be newer, but it is also more sensitive. We have found readings that suggest something artificial is hiding in that sector." The other aliens began to talk among themselves, making sounds of amusement. Some clicked, others hummed, and a few made noises humans had no words for. None of it sounded friendly. Zethmarin of the Nexari spoke next. When he talked, his crystal body made musical sounds. "Artificial? In empty space far from any world? Your fear makes you see things that are not there, humans." Fleet Admiral Taehyun Lee stood up from his seat. He was Vorthak, but he wore the uniform of their most important fleet. The 9th Fleet was famous across the galaxy for never losing a battle. He was proud, and it showed in every movement. "The 9th Fleet will continue with our planned patrol of Omega-7, he announced. "We will not change our course because humans have bad dreams." Dr. Minseo Choi stepped forward. She was Earth's best expert on ancient alien ruins and languages. Her hair was tied back in a simple style, and she carried a datapad filled with research. "Admiral Lee, we have found warnings about this sector in ruins on 17 different worlds. Ancient races left messages telling others to stay away from that area." The room filled with more alien laughter. Veltar slammed his claw on his floating chair. "Ancient warnings, ruins. You dig in dirt and think you understand the galaxy." Hyunwoo felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We are not asking you to cancel your mission. We are asking you to be careful. Send scout ships first. Use long-range sensors. Do not take your entire fleet into an area we do not understand." "Enough!" Veltar's voice boomed through the chamber. "The Council has heard your words. We find them without value. Humans see danger everywhere because you are weak. Strong species like us do not run from shadows." The other Council members made sounds of agreement. The meeting was over before it had really begun. One by one, the aliens left their seats and floated or walked toward the exits. None of them looked back at the human delegation. So-Jin moved closer to Hyunwoo as the chamber emptied. "They will not listen. 12 different species all thinking they are better than us." Hyunwoo watched the last of the aliens leave. "Pride," he said quietly. "It will be their downfall. They see our caution as weakness, but caution has kept humanity alive." Dr. Minseo looked at her datapad one more time. The ancient warnings were very clear. They spoke of something that harvests the proud and feeds on advanced minds. "I wish I could have translated more before coming here." "Maybe it is better that you did not," So-Jin said. They would have laughed even harder at talk of ancient monsters. Hyunwoo activated his communication device. "Commander Jin Ho-yoon, this is Admiral Kim. Are you receiving?" The voice that came back was clear and strong. "Yes, Admiral. I am reading you from Deep Space Station Gamma. The Council refused our warning. I want all sensors pointed at Omega-7. Watch for any sign of the 9th Fleet. If something happens to them, I want to know immediately." "Understood, sir. I will put my best people on it." As they walked out of the Council chamber, So-Jin asked, "What if we are wrong? What if it is just natural space phenomena?" Hyunwoo stopped walking and looked at her seriously. Then we will look foolish and the galaxy will continue as before. But if we are right, and something terrible is waiting in Omega 7, then those proud fleets are flying straight into disaster. And there is nothing more we can do to stop them? Nothing. We can only watch and hope we are wrong. Dr. Mincio looked back at the now empty council chamber. I have spent my life studying dead civilizations. Do you know what they all had in common? They were all advanced. They were all proud. And they all disappeared without warning. The three humans walked through the corridors of the council station toward their ship. Around them, aliens of many species went about their business, confident in their superiority and their safety. None of them seemed worried about warnings from a young species like humanity. How long until the 9th Fleet reaches Omega 7? So Jin asked. Hyunwoo checked his datapad. 3 days. If we are right about the danger, we will know very soon. As their ship left the council station, Hyunwoo looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, hundreds of ships filled with thousands of alien crew members were flying towards something that ancient races had feared enough to leave warnings about. He had done everything he could to stop them. Now he could only wait and see if humanity's caution was wisdom or cowardice. In 3 days, they would have their answer. Communications specialist Hyun Song stared at her screen with growing worry. She had been working at Deep Space Station Gamma for 2 years, and she had never seen readings like these. The station was humanity's furthest outpost, built to watch the dangerous sectors of space that other species ignored. Commander Yoon, she called across the control room. I am getting strange signals on the communication channels. The 9th Fleet should have reported in 6 hours ago. Commander Jin Ho Yoon looked up from his desk. He was a serious man in his 40s with short black hair and eyes that missed nothing. He had fought in the wars near the Centauri system and knew what real danger looked like. Have you tried calling them directly? Hyun pressed more buttons on her control panel. I have tried 15 times, sir. I get nothing back but static noise. She paused and listened to her headset again. But sir, this static is not normal. There are patterns in it like someone is trying to talk. Lieutenant Woo Jin Bei looked up from his station across the room. He was responsible for watching space around the station with sensors and scanners. Commander, I am seeing massive gravity distortions in the Omega 7 sector. They are getting bigger. Jin-ho felt cold fear in his stomach. He had been a space officer for 20 years, and he had learned to trust his instincts. Something was very wrong. Show me the sensor readings on the main screen. The large screen at the front of the control room filled with a map of local space. The Omega 7 sector was marked with red warning symbols. Where there should have been empty space, the sensors showed swirling patterns of energy and twisted gravity. The readings started 3 hours ago, Woo Jin explained. At first they were small. Now they cover an area the size of a solar system. Hyun turned in her chair to face the commander. Sir, I just lost all contact with the outer sensor buoys near Omega 7. They went silent one by one, starting with the closest to the distortion. Jin-ho activated his communication system. Priority message to Earth Command. Admiral Kim, this is Commander Yoon at Deep Space Station Gamma. We have a major situation developing. The hologram projector in the center of the room flickered to life. Admiral Hyunwoo appeared, looking tired but alert. Behind him, Jin-ho could see the busy command center at Earth Defense Headquarters in Seoul. Report, Commander, the Admiral said. Sir, the entire 9th Fleet has gone silent. They missed their scheduled check-in 6 hours ago, and we cannot raise them on any channel. Long-range sensors show massive gravitational distortions in Omega 7, and all our monitoring equipment near the sector has gone offline. The hologram flickered as Captain So Jin Park joined the conference. Commander, have you detected any signs of battle? Weapon signatures, debris? That is the strange part, Captain. There are no signs of fighting. No energy signatures that would come from ship weapons. No debris fields. The fleet is simply gone as if it never existed. Dr. Min-seo Choi appeared in the hologram next to the others. She looked excited and frightened at the same time. Commander, are you still receiving the static signals? Yes, Doctor. Communication Specialist Song has been recording them. I need you to send me everything you have recorded. I think those signals might be a form of language. Ha-yoon looked at Jin-ho, who nodded. She pressed several buttons and transmitted all her recordings to Dr. Min-seo on Earth. Transmitting now, Doctor. But I should warn you, listening to these signals for too long makes me feel sick. What do you mean? Admiral Kim asked. Hyun hesitated before answering. It is hard to explain, sir. The patterns in the static, They feel like they are trying to get inside my head, like something is trying to talk directly to my brain instead of my ears. Dr. Minseo looked even more worried. Commander Yoon, I am going to need several hours to analyze these signals. In the meantime, I want you to pull your station back to a safer distance from Omega 7. How far back should we move, Doctor? As far as your sensors can still watch the sector. Whatever happened to the Ninth Fleet, I do not want it happening to your station. Admiral Kim spoke again. Commander, I am sending the 4th Defense Fleet to your position. They should arrive within 48 hours. Until then, watch and record everything, but do not, under any circumstances, approach the Omega 7 sector. Understood, Admiral. What should I tell the Galactic Council? Nothing yet. We need to understand what we are dealing with before we make any reports. After the communication ended, Jin Ho gathered his senior staff in the station's briefing room. Besides Hyun and Woo Jin, there was Chief Engineer Seung Min Ko and Security Chief Hae-jin Nam. I want this station moved to the edge of our sensor range within the next 2 hours, Jin Ho told them. Whatever is happening in Omega 7, it took out 300 ships and 50,000 crew members without leaving a trace. Chief Engineer Ko, a small woman with quick hands and a sharp mind, looked at the sensor readings. Commander, these gravity distortions are not natural. Something is bending space itself, creating whirlpools in the fabric of reality. Could it be a weapon? Asked Security Chief Nam. I do not think so, Ko replied. Weapons destroy things. This looks more like something is collecting or absorbing matter and energy. Hyun spoke up from her seat at the communications console. Sir, the static signals are getting stronger. And they are definitely trying to communicate. I can feel it when I listen to them. What kind of feeling? Jin Ho asked. Like something very old and very intelligent is trying to understand how my mind works. It makes my skin crawl. Woo Jin pulled up new sensor readings on the briefing room screen. Commander, the distortions are expanding. At this rate, they will reach the outer planets of the nearest star system within a week. Jin Ho looked at the readings with growing alarm. Whatever was in Omega 7 was not staying put. It was growing, spreading, consuming more space around it. How many people live in that system? About 12 million across 4 colonies, Woo Jin answered. The room fell silent as everyone realized what that meant. If the expanding distortions reached those colonies, millions more people could disappear just like the Ninth Fleet. Back on Earth, Dr. Minseo worked through the night analyzing the strange signals. She had converted the static into visual patterns and was running them through every language database humanity had collected. What she found made her hands shake as she typed. The signals were not random noise. They were definitely a form of communication, but unlike anything she had ever seen, the patterns seemed to shift and change depending on how long she studied them, as if they were alive and adapting to her attempts to understand them. More frightening was what happened when she tried to listen to the original audio recordings. Just as Ha-eun had warned, the sound seemed to bypass her ears and speak directly to her mind. Images flashed in her head of vast dark spaces and things that moved through dimensions humans could not perceive. She called Admiral Kim at 3 a.m, Earth time. Admiral, I have preliminary results from the signal analysis. You need to hear this. What did you find, Doctor? These signals are not from the Ninth Fleet. They are from whatever took the fleet. And Admiral, I think they are trying to communicate with us specifically. What do you mean? The patterns in the signals they are learning. Each transmission is more complex than the last, as if something is studying our language and figuring out how to talk to us. Whatever is out there, it knows we are watching and it wants to make contact. Admiral Kim was quiet for a long moment. Doctor, based on your analysis, what do you think happened to the Ninth Fleet? Dr. Minseo looked at her screens full of alien patterns and felt a chill run down her spine. I think they were taken, Admiral. Captured by something we do not understand. And I think that something is now trying to decide what to do with the rest of us. Captain Do Hyun Kang stood on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Sejong and watched the stars ahead. His ship was the newest and most advanced vessel in the human fleet. It had taken 2 days to reach the edge of the Omega 7 sector, and now they faced something that made even experienced officers nervous. The Sejong was built with the best technology Earth could create. Its hull was made of quantum-bonded metal that could resist most weapons. Its shields could bend space around the ship to make it hard to hit. Its weapons could tear holes in reality itself. But looking at the sensor readings from Omega 7, Do Hyun wondered if even their best technology would be enough. Sensor sweep complete. Captain, reported Science Officer Ye-Jin Seo. She was young but smart, with a gift for understanding complex readings. I am detecting 12 large gravitational sources where space should be empty. The quantum energy readings are unlike anything in our databases. Chief Engineer Sung-Ho Park whistled softly from his station. Captain, according to these readings, there is something out there the size of a small moon. But it is not completely in our dimension. Parts of it seem to exist in spaces we cannot perceive. Do-hyun studied the tactical display that showed the space around them. The Omega-7 sector looked normal to the human eye, but their sensors painted a different picture. Gravity wells twisted and bent space in impossible ways. Energy readings spiked and faded in patterns that hurt to think about. Any sign of the Ninth Fleet? He asked. Navigator Sumin Kim checked her instruments. No intact ships, Captain, but I am detecting microscopic fragments of Vorthak metal scattered throughout the system. The pieces are so small they could only be seen with our most sensitive scanners. As if the ships were dissolved, Ye-Jin added quietly. Broken down to the atomic level and spread across thousands of kilometers of space. Do-hyun felt cold fear settle in his chest. 300 ships, some of them larger than Earth's biggest cities, reduced to dust too small to see without special equipment. How long would it take to do that to an entire fleet? Based on the scatter patterns, Suman calculated, maybe an hour. Possibly less. The bridge fell silent as everyone thought about what that meant. The Ninth Fleet was the most powerful military force in the galaxy, with weapons that could destroy planets and shields that could stop almost any attack. Something had destroyed all of them in less than an hour without leaving pieces big enough to identify. Communications Officer Ju-Wan Lee looked up from his station. Captain, I am receiving a message from Dr. Min-seo on Luna Station. She says it is urgent. The main screen flickered and Dr. Min-seo appeared. She looked like she had not slept in days. Her hair was messy and her eyes were wide with excitement and fear. Behind her, the walls of her laboratory were covered with strange symbols and mathematical equations. Captain Kang, I have made a breakthrough with the signal analysis. What you are facing out there, it is not just dangerous. It is ancient beyond imagination. What did you find, Doctor? Do-hyun asked. The static signals that Deep Space Station Gamma recorded, I have been able to translate parts of them. The language is a mixture of 17 different alien tongues, all from species that disappeared from the galaxy thousands of years ago. Ye-Jin leaned forward in her chair. Disappeared how? That is the terrifying part. According to ancient records, these civilizations were advanced, powerful, and proud. Then one by one, they simply vanished. No wars, no disasters, no trace of where they went. Historians always assumed they destroyed themselves or left the galaxy. But now I think something else happened. Dr. Min-seo activated a hologram that showed a map of the galaxy with red dots marking locations. I have been checking the ancient records. Every one of these vanished civilizations had one thing in common. The last signal from each of them came from a region of space with gravitational anomalies, just like Omega-7. Do-hyun studied the map. There were dozens of red dots scattered across the galaxy, each marking a dead civilization. Are you saying something has been hunting advanced species for thousands of years? Not hunting, Captain. Harvesting. I managed to translate one complete message from the signals. It said the harvest continues. The proud fall first. The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Tactical Officer Dong Wook-yoon spoke up. Doctor, are you saying this thing specifically targets advanced civilizations? That is exactly what I am saying. And think about it, what did the Ninth Fleet represent? The pride and military might of the Vorthak Empire. The most advanced warships in the galaxy, commanded by officers who believed nothing could defeat them. Chief Engineer Park checked his readings again. Captain, whatever's out there is starting to move. The gravitational distortions are shifting, getting stronger. Do-hyun activated the ship's communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to encounter something that has destroyed civilizations for thousands of years. Stay sharp, follow orders, and remember that we represent not just Earth, but potentially the future of all intelligent life in the galaxy. On the main screen, space itself began to ripple and bend. What appeared was something that challenged the human mind to understand it. The entity was massive, easily the size of Earth's moon, but its shape kept changing. Sometimes it looked like a crystal structure that caught and bent light in impossible ways. Other times it seemed like a collection of metal and technology that grew and shifted like a living thing. Captain, Ye-Jin said in a voice barely above a whisper. I am reading technology that is millions of years old, mixed with components that appear to be from the Ninth Fleet. It is as if something took their ships apart and added the pieces to itself. The entity pulsed with energy that made the Sejong's shields flicker and spark. More disturbing were the smaller objects that began emerging from the main structure. They were clearly built from the remains of Vorthak ships, but changed and twisted into new forms. Those are not just rebuilt ships, Dongwook reported. I am detecting life signs inside them. The crews of the Ninth Fleet are still alive, but they are somehow connected to the main entity. Ju-won suddenly straightened at his station. Captain, we are receiving a transmission. It is in perfect Korean. The voice that came through the speakers was unlike anything any of them had ever heard. It was thousands of voices speaking as one, harmonized in a way that was both beautiful and terrifying. Some of the voices were clearly alien, but others sounded disturbingly human. Humans of Earth, your warning to the Council was heard. Your caution in approaching this place has been noted. You are different from the others. Do-hyun found his voice, though it took effort. What are you? What did you do to the Ninth Fleet? We are what remains of 1,000 civilizations. We are memory and knowledge preserved. We are the harvesters. The Ninth Fleet fought us with pride and arrogance. Their minds and their technology now serve a greater purpose. You destroyed them. We preserved them. They are not gone. They are part of something larger now. Their knowledge, their experiences, their very thoughts have been added to our collective wisdom. Ye-Jin checked her sensors again and gasped. Captain, the entity is not just one thing. It is made up of millions of absorbed minds, all working together as a single consciousness. The Harvester's voice continued. For eons we have sought out the most advanced species in the galaxy. Those who believe themselves superior, who conquer and expand without wisdom, who let pride blind them to danger. They make perfect additions to our collective. Do-hyun realized what the entity was telling them, but we warned them. We tried to stop them from coming here. Yes. For the first time in our existence, we encountered a species that chose caution over aggression. A species that tried to protect others rather than prove their own strength. This intrigues us. Chief Engineer Park looked at his captain with wide eyes. Sir, I think we are being tested. The Harvester seemed to hear him. Correct, human engineer. Your species stands at a crossroads. You have developed advanced technology, but you have also shown wisdom and humility. You warned your enemies of danger even though they dismissed you. What kind of test? Do-hyun asked. You will see. The test has already begun. On the tactical display, more Harvester constructs began emerging from the main entity. But these were not approaching the Sejong. Instead, they were heading toward the inner systems of the galaxy, toward worlds populated by billions of beings from the same species that had ignored Earth's warning. Do-hyun realized with horror what was happening. The Harvesters were not just testing humanity. They were using humanity's warning as a way to identify which species were too proud and aggressive to survive. The test was not just for Earth, it was for the entire galaxy. The emergency meeting of Earth's leaders took place in the secure command center deep beneath Seoul. Admiral Hyunwoo sat at the head of the table, surrounded by the most important people in human space. President Ji-sung Park looked tired from being woken in the middle of the night. Defense Minister Yoon Ji-choi had been in meetings for 18 straight hours. Dr. Min Seo appeared via hologram from her laboratory on Luna Station. The situation is clear, Hyunwoo began. The Harvesters have given us a test. We can become like the other species and fight them, which means we get absorbed into their collective, or we can prove that humanity deserves to survive as guardians of younger civilizations. Captain So-jin leaned forward from her position at the communication console. Admiral, reports from across the galaxy show that 6 major species are already fighting the Harvesters. None of them are winning. Dr. Min Seo's hologram flickered as she accessed new data. The pattern is always the same. The Harvesters appear near the species' most important military installations. The species respond with their most powerful weapons. The weapons have no effect, and within hours, entire fleets are absorbed. What about civilian populations? President Park asked. Untouched, Sojin replied. The Harvesters only target military forces and government leaders. It is as if they want to preserve the people while removing the structures that make species aggressive. Defense Minister Choi studied the tactical displays. We could mobilize every ship in the Earth Defense Force, if we coordinated with the remaining free species. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. That is exactly what the harvesters expect aggressive species to do. Mass our forces, plan a big attack, try to win through superior firepower. Every species they have absorbed thought the same way. Dr. Minseo spoke from her hologram. I have been analyzing the historical records of the guardian species the harvesters showed us. They all had one thing in common. When faced with the harvester test, they chose to help others rather than help themselves. What do you mean? President Park asked. Instead of fighting the harvesters or trying to run away, they used their resources to evacuate civilian populations from war zones. They sent aid to species under attack. They shared their technology to help others defend themselves, rather than building bigger weapons for their own armies. Captain So-Jin looked at the communication logs. We are already getting requests for help from colonies across the galaxy. Civilian populations trying to escape the fighting between their governments and the harvesters. Hyunwoo stood and walked to the large display showing the galactic situation. Red zones marked areas where fighting was taking place. Yellow zones showed planets requesting evacuation assistance. Green zones were still peaceful, but they were getting smaller by the hour. This is our test, he said quietly. Do we focus on protecting Earth and human space, or do we try to help everyone? Defense Minister Choi shook her head. Admiral, if we spread our forces thin trying to help alien civilians, we leave Earth defenseless. Our first duty is to our own people. Our first duty, Dr. Minseo countered, is to prove that humanity can be trusted with advanced technology and knowledge. The harvesters are offering to make us guardians of the galaxy. That means thinking beyond just human interests. President Park was quiet for a long moment, then spoke. What would it mean practically? What would we actually do? Sojin pulled up tactical displays. We have 600 ships in the defense fleet. Instead of keeping them in Earth space, we could send them to evacuate civilian populations from the war zones. Our medical ships could treat refugees. Our transport vessels could move people to safety. And leave Earth undefended against the harvesters? Defense Minister Choi asked. The harvesters are not attacking Earth, Hyunwoo pointed out. They are waiting to see what choice we make. If we choose correctly, Earth will be safer than it has ever been. If we choose incorrectly, no amount of military force will save us. The debate continued for hours, but gradually consensus emerged. Humanity would take the risk. They would scatter their fleet across the galaxy on rescue missions, trusting that the harvesters would see this as proof of wisdom rather than weakness. 3 days later, Captain Do-hyun watched from the bridge of the Sejong as human ships arrived at refugee camps across 6 different star systems. Earth medical vessels treated wounded civilians from species that had never been friendly to humanity. Human transport ships carried alien families to safety, asking for nothing in return. Communications Officer Ju-Won Lee looked up from his station. Captain, I am receiving a transmission from the Harvester entity. They want to speak with you. The familiar harmonic voice filled the bridge. Captain Kang, your species has made its choice. Instead of preparing for war, you have chosen to protect the innocent. Instead of building weapons, you have sent medical aid. It seemed like the right thing to do, Do-hyun replied simply. Many species have faced this test. You are only the third in a million years to choose as you have chosen. The others sought to prove their strength. You have chosen to demonstrate your compassion. Science Officer Yejin Seo monitored her sensors. Captain, the gravitational distortions around the harvester entity are changing. It is doing something different. The space around the massive harvester construct began to shimmer and change. Slowly, carefully, other ships began to emerge. But these were not the twisted constructs built from absorbed vessels. These were ships of elegant design, clearly built by the harvester entity itself. These are gifts, the harvester voice explained. Technology beyond what your species could develop in 1,000 years. Medical equipment that can heal any injury. Sensors that can see across dimensional barriers. Weapons that can protect without destroying. Fleet Admiral Tae-hyun Lee appeared on the screen again, but this time he looked more like himself. The alien glow in his eyes had softened, and his voice carried its old authority mixed with new wisdom. Captain Kang, I want to thank your species for trying to warn us. We were too proud to listen, but your warning came from genuine concern for our safety. That compassion has saved not just humanity, but potentially the entire galaxy. What do you mean? Do-hyun asked. The harvesters have made me an offer. They can separate my consciousness and the consciousness of my crew from the collective. We can return to individual existence, but with all the knowledge we gained while we were part of something larger. And you want to accept? I want to help humanity fulfill its new role as galactic guardians. My people learned too late that strength without wisdom leads to destruction. Perhaps we can help others learn this lesson before it is too late for them. Dr. Minseo's voice joined the conversation from Earth. Admiral Lee, what about the other species that were absorbed? The ones from ancient history? Many have chosen to remain part of the collective. They find peace in shared consciousness, but others want to return to individual existence as teachers and guides. The harvesters are willing to allow this now that they have found a species capable of true guardianship. The harvester voice spoke again. Humanity, you have passed the test that determines the fate of advanced civilizations. You are now the youngest guardian species in the galaxy. Your role will be to watch for developing civilizations and guide them away from the path of self-destruction. Captain So-Jin's voice came from Earth. What about the species that are still fighting you? The ones that have not yet been absorbed? They will be given one final chance. If they can learn from humanity's example and choose wisdom over pride, they too may survive as independent beings. If not, they will join our collective, and their knowledge will be preserved even if their civilizations are not. Do-hyun looked around his bridge at officers who had signed up to defend Earth and found themselves responsible for protecting the entire galaxy. This is not what any of us expected when we joined the Defense Force. The best tests never are, the Harvester replied. You have shown that humanity can think beyond its own survival, can act for the benefit of others even at personal cost. This is the wisdom that qualifies a species for guardianship. Over the following weeks, 3 of the 6 species that had been fighting the Harvesters laid down their weapons and began following humanity's example. They sent aid to refugee populations and focused on protecting civilians rather than fighting hopeless battles. These species were allowed to survive and were offered junior partnership in the new galactic protection system. The other 3 species fought until their military forces were completely absorbed. Their civilian populations survived and were placed under the protection of the guardian species. But their aggressive governments and military leaders became part of the Harvester Collective. As Earth's ships returned home after months of rescue operations, Admiral Hyunwoo stood in his office looking out at the stars. The galaxy was different now. Humanity had gone from being one of the youngest and weakest species to being responsible for the safety and development of hundreds of other civilizations. Captain So-Jin entered his office with a data pad full of reports. Admiral, we have requests for assistance from 47 different worlds. Some want help with natural disasters. Others need mediation for civil conflicts, and 12 want our help in making peaceful contact with their neighbors. The space around the Earth ship Sejong filled with impossible sights as more harvester constructs emerged from the massive entity. Captain Do-hyun watched his tactical display with growing horror as dozens of the rebuilt ships spread out toward different parts of the galaxy. Captain, Navigator Sumin Kim reported, the harvester vessels are heading toward the home systems of every species that was at the council meeting. Forthak Space, Nixari Territory, Cleth Worlds, all of them. Communications Officer Ju-Won Lee turned to face his captain. Sir, I am receiving emergency broadcasts from across the galaxy. Multiple species are reporting attacks on their outer colonies and military installations. The harmonized voice of the harvesters filled the bridge again. It sounded almost sad, like a teacher disappointed in their students. For 1,000,000 years we have watched civilizations rise and fall. We have seen species develop great technology and great wisdom, but most choose pride over prudence, expansion over understanding. Science Officer Ye-Jin Seo checked her long-range sensors. Captain, I am reading massive gravitational distortions appearing near the capital worlds of 7 different species, the same type of anomalies we found here in Omega 7. Do-hyun activated his ship's communication system. Earth Command, this is Captain Kang aboard the Sejong. We have a galaxy-wide emergency developing. The harvesters are moving against multiple species simultaneously. Admiral Hyunwoo's image appeared on the main screen. Behind him, the Earth Defense Command Center was chaos, with officers running between stations and alarms sounding in the background. Captain, we are receiving distress calls from half the galaxy. What is the situation at Omega 7? Sir, we are in direct communication with the entity responsible. It calls itself the Harvesters, and it appears to be a collective consciousness made up of absorbed civilizations spanning millions of years. Dr. Minseo appeared next to the Admiral. She looked exhausted but alert. Captain, I have been analyzing historical records. Every major civilization that has vanished from galactic history disappeared during periods when they were at the height of their military power and territorial expansion. The Harvester voice spoke again, somehow knowing it was being transmitted to Earth. Dr. Mincio of the human species, your understanding is correct. We do not harvest randomly. We seek out those who have achieved great advancement but have lost the wisdom to use it responsibly. What gives you the right to decide which species lives or dies? Du-Hyun demanded. Experience. We have watched species develop weapons that could destroy star systems, then use them against their neighbors over resources and pride. We have seen civilizations that could have brought peace to the galaxy instead choose conquest and domination. Tactical Officer Dong-Wook Yoon looked up from his station. Captain, the Harvester constructs are not destroying the planets they approach. They appear to be selectively targeting military vessels and government installations. We do not destroy civilizations, the Harvester explained. We preserve them. Their knowledge, their experiences, their unique perspectives become part of our collective consciousness. In this way, they achieve a form of immortality. Chief Engineer Sung-Ho Park checked his instruments. Sir, I am detecting transmissions from the absorbed crew of the Ninth Fleet. They are still conscious and aware, but their individual thoughts are part of something larger now. The main screen flickered, and suddenly the bridge crew could see inside one of the Harvester constructs. Fleet Admiral Tae-Hyun Lee of the Vorthak appeared, but he looked different. His eyes glowed with an inner light, and when he spoke, his voice carried the same harmonic quality as the main Harvester entity. Captain Kang, the transformed admiral said, I understand now what your species tried to warn us about. The Harvesters are not evil, they are gardeners, pruning civilizations that grow too aggressive before they can poison the entire galaxy. Du-Hyun felt sick to his stomach. Admiral Lee, are you still you? Do you still have your own thoughts and memories? I am still Tae-Hyun Lee, but I am also more than I was before. I have access to the memories and knowledge of millions of beings across time. I can see the patterns that led to the rise and fall of countless civilizations. The Harvesters showed us something we never understood when we were separate. What did they show you? That every species faces the same choice as they become advanced. They can choose to expand and dominate, or they can choose to grow wise and help others grow. Most choose expansion. Those are the ones that get harvested. Dr. Minseo spoke from Earth. Admiral Lee, what about the species that choose wisdom? They become guardians, protectors of younger civilizations, teachers instead of conquerors. There have been a few throughout galactic history, but very few. The main Harvester voice returned. Your species, human, stands at this crossroads now. You have developed impressive technology, but you also showed remarkable restraint. You tried to warn your enemies about danger even when they mocked you. Captain Sojin Park's voice joined the conversation from Earth. What exactly are you asking us to choose? Watch, the Harvester replied. The space around the Sejong filled with holographic images showing events across the galaxy. The crew could see Vorthak fleets trying to fight the Harvester constructs with massive weapons that could crack planets. They could see Nexari attempting to use their crystal technology to phase shift away from attacks. The Cleth were releasing clouds of toxic gas to try to poison their attackers. All of them were responding with violence and aggression, just as they had their entire histories. None of them tried diplomacy, negotiation, or retreat. Their pride would not let them run from a fight, even against something they could not understand. Every species we harvest follows the same pattern, the Harvester explained. When faced with superior force, they attack rather than seek understanding. When offered the chance to change their ways, they choose to fight rather than adapt. Yejin monitored the battles through her sensors. Captain, none of the other species are trying to communicate with the Harvesters. They are all just attacking. That is why they will be absorbed, Admiral Lee said sadly. They cannot imagine any response to a threat except violence. Even now, as their fleets are being dissolved around them, they are planning bigger weapons and more desperate attacks. Du-Hyun realized what was happening. This is not just about them. You are showing us what happens to species that choose pride over wisdom. Correct. And now you must choose what humanity will become. The holographic images around the ship changed, showing different scenes. These were images of civilizations that had chosen differently. Species that had used their advanced technology to help younger races develop safely. Civilizations that had become teachers and protectors instead of conquerors. These are the guardians, the Harvester said. Species that passed our test by choosing wisdom over strength. They are given knowledge and technology beyond what they could develop alone, and they use it to guide others away from the path of self-destruction. Admiral Hyun Woo leaned forward on the screen. And if we refuse? If we choose to fight like the others? Then you will join our collective and your knowledge will be preserved forever. But your species as independent beings will end. The bridge fell silent as everyone understood the weight of the choice before them. Humanity had to decide not just their own fate, but potentially the fate of any species that might follow them. How long do we have to decide? Do-hyun asked. The choice is already being made, the harvester replied. We are watching how your species responds to this crisis. Will you try to attack us? Will you try to save only yourselves? Or will you find another way? Do-hyun looked around at his crew, seeing fear but also determination in their faces. He thought about Admiral Kim's warning to the council, about Dr. Min Seo's patient research into ancient mysteries, about humanity's history of helping others even when it cost them. We will find another way, he said firmly, but we need time to show you what that way looks like. The harvester was quiet for a long moment. Time you shall have, but know that across the galaxy, proud civilizations are falling. Soon only the wise will remain,